from the mountain to the prairie to the ocean.
Welcome to the Watchdog Report. My name is Ed Ciffone. Well, listen, the people that watch Channel 15, remember, it's at 10 o'clock at night on Channel 15. And those people who are watching it in Channel 74, it's on 9 a.m. in the morning on Saturday, Monday night at 9:30, and Wednesday afternoon at 4:30. So you get a chance to see a lot of information. So I just want to say that we haven't been here in the last month because of we had a hurricane, we had a place getting fixed up here, we had Thanksgiving. So listen, I want to wish you all, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and at the end of the show I'm going to wish you a Merry Christmas. Now, this is our guest today. Now, this shirt is, I think it was 2001?
2005.
2005, his first election. So my guest is Rob Astorino, County Executive of Westchester. Rob, thank you so much for coming again.
Ed, those are going for like $4 on eBay.
Oh, on eBay? So. That's it. No, that was great. So we know each other for a long time, yeah. So it's really good. And the show is yours, because the main thing is budget time in all the towns and villages. So let's hope you have good news like you did in the past. No increases.
That's right.
So
I come bearing good news for the
good
holidays.
news. Oh,
for
the holidays. Oh,
that's
good. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
The good news is there's good news and bad news.
I knew you had it.
Well, but the bad news is, you know, it's really inherent with the system here in New York. But let's talk about the good news. The good news is this is my third year in office, my third budget, 3 budgets in a row, including this year, no tax increase.
Oh, that's great.
Now I'm proud of that, yeah, but that didn't come easy. You know, there's no fairy godmother that says, okay, that's a lot of work, and it's worth it. We're the highest tax county in America.
Still?
Still.
Even with that?
Now that is, you know, that's all taxes included.
Right.
That's your school taxes, your town, your village, your county, everything. But Nassau's, you know, nipping on our butt, and I'd love to give them baton and say, go ahead, take the gold medal. But, you know, it's possible that may not happen for quite a long time, but we're going in the right direction. Now, when I came in here in 2010, when I took the oath of office in January, for the previous 6 years, the county had spent crazy.
Right.
4.5 times the rate of inflation were the tax increases. Right. And that has a bad effect on people. You know, if you're a senior citizen living in your home on a fixed income, you paid off your mortgage a while ago, the tax bills that you get are crushing you and forcing people out. And I hear it everywhere. Middle income families, whether it's a younger family or a family with kids in school, like my wife and I have.
We had a new one?
Yeah, well, 3 years ago, right before the election.
3 years ago
already?
Oh,
my wife and I have a 9-year-old son, a 7-year-old daughter, and a 3-year-old daughter. And just like everybody else, you know, we're trying to stay ahead of things, but it gets very difficult when you're buying cheerleader uniforms and, you know, registration for football and trying to go out to dinner once in a blue moon and doing the things that you want to do and things you have to do. And oh yeah, you got to pay. You got to pay Con Ed. You got to pay Cablevision. You have to pay everybody else. So it's not easy. And so to me, the tax situation in Westchester County was out of control. And we came in here and said, we've got to have 3 priorities that's going to guide this administration. And the first one, and we call them the 3 Ps. The first one is protecting taxpayers. And I think we've done that for the 3rd year in a row, no tax increase. Now, when I came in here, the budget for Westchester County government was $1.8 billion. We are at $1.7 billion. Wow, so after 3 years, we've reduced spending in a reasonable, rational way. We've lived within our own means, just like you and everybody else has to do at home. You know, basic math is you don't spend more than you take in. Well, that's our rule. And so we're living by that. Now, that means we're going to make some tough decisions, and we have. Some of them aren't popular, but they have to be done. Right. You know, I would much rather, just like when my kids are screaming and yelling, give them a lollipop so they're satisfied and they're quiet. But you keep doing that, their teeth are going to rot. And I think that's the same with government. You've got to be able to say no, even though there's some well-intentioned ideas and good people, but you can't keep giving out money you don't have. And that's really what we've tried to do. And so we've been able to successfully, and that's why we've had 0% tax increases for the last 3 years.
Yeah, but how does the process work now? You come out with the budget,
Yeah.
and then it goes to the county legislators?
Yeah, my budget is proposed.
And then when do they give it back to you, or you don't get it anymore?
Well, it goes, the process is by November 15th every year, the county executive has to submit to the county board of legislators a proposed budget. Now, we've been working on the budget for months and meeting with every department, every commissioner, making them justify every expense, finding out how we can reorganize and do the same with less, and we've been able to do that. And then we put together a budget and submit it to the board of legislators. They then have public hearings on my budget and tear apart my budget, and that's fine. They're supposed to do that, by the way, and question us and question the commissioners. Then they have to adopt a budget by December 27th. Now, the process is very flawed because for 5 weeks, all the commotion is on my proposed budget.
Yeah, right.
That's fair. But then what the Board of Legislators does is they make massive, sometimes radical changes with no discussion with the commissioners on how their departments would be affected, with the administration, and more importantly, with the public. So the public is weighing in on my budget, right, wrong, or indifferent. And then the Board of Legislators goes behind closed doors on one day, makes massive changes sometimes, and then throws a budget on the desk and says to the Republicans, you got a half hour because we're going to vote on this. Meanwhile, nobody knows what the changes were until after the fact. So I think what has come out of this is...
Well, how do you fix that? Yeah.
Well, it's up to the board. You know, it's their rules. But the Republican legislators, led by Legislator John Testa, Sheila Marcotte, and other legislators, have said there should be a 48-hour rule. So any changes that the board is going to make before they vote on them, the public and the press should have at least 2 days, 48 hours, to view the changes and make comments. And I think that's fair. They've had 5 or 6 weeks on my budget. They could at least give them 2 days on theirs. And then they adopt it.
How come you don't go to the county legislator meetings?
Me?
Yeah, how come you never...
It's a separation of...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like...
because I would like to see you there once. When you give your budget...
When I give a State of the County address...
Is it there?
It's either in the chambers. Historically, it's been in the chambers, but...
Seems like you guys don't get together.
Well, this past year, we decided to do it out on the road. Governor Cuomo has changed it from the legislative chambers in Albany.
Oh, okay.
And part of that is you want to take it out and you want to be more accessible. The county board chambers is limited in its seating, fairly small. Right. And we get hundreds of requests to come, and so we did it this year at the courthouse where the jury room is. And we were able to put 300 people in there and accommodate many more people. And News 12 airs it live, and so people get to see it around the county. But the budget itself, the process then, the board makes changes. Anything that they add to the budget, I can veto. And if I veto it and at least 6 legislators side with me and sustain the veto, then the veto stands. And
wait, because that changed
it's
now,
not
right?
put in.
The last election?
Well, in the past,
they don't have the supermajority
when I
anymore,
came into office, there was 13 Democrats and 4 Republicans, which is a supermajority for them.
Right.
So anytime I would veto legislation or veto spending bills that I thought were inappropriate or too expensive, they would generally override them. Now that's 10-7, we picked up 3 seats. There are 10 Democrats, 7 Republicans. It's a more balanced board, and there's more discussion. And I've only had to issue, a few vetoes in the last year, and they've all basically been upheld. And so there's more balance that way. Unfortunately now, the county board, the Democrats on the county board, now that they don't have their say or way every time through the regular process, if they don't get their own way, they run to court. And they've sued me 6 times already.
Yeah, what's going on?
Which is insane. And that's not how government's supposed to work.
So taxpayers' money, just keep it on.
Yeah, and that's not how government's supposed to work. Because judges shouldn't be judge, legislator, and executive. They shouldn't be doing that. In rare cases, but not running government and telling government how it's supposed to run. And that, unfortunately, is a practice that the Democratic Board of Legislators should stop. And it is a waste of time, it is a waste of money, and that's just not the process. But anyway, so number 1, 3 Ps, protecting taxpayers. We've done that. The second one is preserving essential services. And I think that's very important because we have a county with many needs. There are people in this county that have short-term needs. Could be from the hurricane, it could be from the economy. You know, we want to make sure the most vulnerable are helped. We have a Beeline bus system that needs to remain strong so people can get to and from work, that employers can have their employees come to work so the business stays. So these are things that are very important.
But you cut some of those things out.
Well,
the ones that are non-essential?
The ones that are non-essential,
we've
said, yeah, the ones that are non-essential or nice to have or non-mandated, those are the ones that have a microscope on them. Okay. The ones that are mandated we'll continue to do, and the ones that are really vitally important, like for instance, you know, in this budget of $1.7 billion, we did add $50,000 to legal services of Hudson Valley. Why did we do that? Well, there was a growing need for the poor to have representation for domestic violence, homelessness prevention, those kind of issues, and we felt it was the right thing to do. Now, I would say that a Beeline bus system, for instance, is an essential service. Building and maintaining roads and bridges, that's an essential service. Right. Playland Amusement Park is not an essential service. Right, okay. It's a nice place, but it loses $3 to $5 million a year. So when we're trying to balance a budget and live within our means, we got to do things differently. And the last P is called promoting economic development. And you can cut, and we've been doing that in a reasonable way, but you also need to grow. And we're trying to foster development in this county in a realistic way.
So your tax base goes up?
So the tax base goes up, so it takes pressure off the individual taxpayers and homeowners. And that's something that we've been able to successfully do.
Well, you did that with the MTA. You got together.
Well, you're talking about the MTA tax?
Yeah, because
that is something that was harmful to the economy.
That's what I'm saying, but you guys...
When the state instituted the MTA payroll tax on small businesses, on nonprofits, on schools, on everybody, we thought it was illegal. We thought it was detrimental, and we went to court, and we won. So it's on appeal, and we'll see what happens there. But that was something where it was just completely done in the night with nobody knowing about it, and it was absolutely detrimental to people. So that's how we sort of take our cues each day when we go to the office.
So those 3 P's. Okay.
Yes. My mother said eat your peas and carrots, but so now we have 3 P's every day.
So I have a pet P, but this affordable housing, you know, we've talked about it when you were on the show last time, and we know it's $60 million, 750 units and all that stuff. But I like to know, say I'm a developer, or can I come, listen, I want to develop a certain amount of units, okay, come to the county. Okay, first thing, what do you do with that developer? Do you give them subsidies or tax breaks to build it? And then answer that question. I just want to keep going on and see how.
Yeah. Let me first define the housing settlement so people understand what it is, because they may say, what's this housing settlement?
Oh, yeah, good.
In the year 2006, a group called the Anti-Discrimination Center sued Westchester County under the 1863 False Claims Act. And what they said was Westchester, in taking money from the federal government in the form of community development block grant, which many communities use for, it could be for housing, it could be for sidewalks or playgrounds, it could be for a variety of things. In taking this money, the county, in certifying to the federal government that they used this money properly, which it did, but as part of taking the money, you have to do studies and analysis and all this other information. And one of them is that the county studied whether somebody's race was an impediment to fair housing, whether they were discriminated against.
Okay.
The county failed to do some of those things, not willfully, but for whatever reason didn't check the box. And under the False Claims Act, this gentleman from New York City sued, and the county, under my predecessor, Mr. Spano, and the County Board of Legislators in 2009 decided, once the Obama administration stepped in under the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, decided that they would settle this case under jurisdiction of the federal court. The settlement required, beginning in January of 2010 when I took office, that the county would build 750 units of what's called, and I put it in air quotes, fair and affordable housing, because there is no definition of fair and affordable housing, yet that's the guideline we're supposed to use. It's generally low income. That's the guideline used by HUD. It's low income for 31 eligible communities in Westchester. Now, an eligible community is defined by the 2000 census. If a community's makeup is 7% or less Hispanic, 3% or less African American, then that community is deemed eligible and must build affordable housing in its community in the next 7 years. So we have to build as a county 750 units in these 31 communities spread out over these 7 years, and at least $51 million to do it. Now I can tell you, like anything in government, it's never going to be 51. It's going to be about $100 million, maybe more than that. And that's all taxpayer money. And the good news is we're well ahead of schedule in building these units. We've basically met the benchmark for 2013. Okay. Now it's important that we actually stay ahead of the game and meet these benchmarks, because if we don't, each month we can get significantly fined by the courts. So this was the terms of the settlement. I didn't agree with it. It was done before I got in, right, but I inherited it, and now it's incumbent upon me to make sure we finish this so the county does not go bankrupt or get into any bad situation.
Okay, but
the problem is, Ed, though, okay, you now have a federal government that is very aggressive, overreaching, and trying to force the county to do things that are not in the agreement.
Oh, right.
Now, this agreement is like a contract between two parties.
Right.
And if you and I agreed on something in writing, I would have to uphold my end of the bargain, and so would you. We're doing that.
Right.
What I'm not going to do is if you came into me and said, you know what, I demand you do the following things, and I'm going to rip up the agreement. You can't make me do that.
Right.
And that's the point we're at right now. The federal government is trying to force upon the county things that are not in the settlement. Okay. And I'll give you two instances. Number one, and this is a private property issue. If you own property and rent, if you have 3 units or more, so you could own 2 two-family homes and rent those. Right now, under the law, you are not obligated in any way to accept Section 8 housing vouchers. Okay. Now, the Section 8 housing program is fine. I don't have an issue with that. People use these vouchers to sort of bridge the gap between their income and what the rent would be on an apartment building. But as an owner, if you own an apartment building or own homes and you rent them, it's your choice now whether or not you take Section 8 vouchers, because in doing so, it's not cash, it's a contract.
Right.
It's an agreement to take this Section 8 and abide by all the rules and regulations of the federal government with this money. So in essence, if you take the Section 8, then you're doing business with the federal government, choosing to do it, and you have to do certifications every month or whatever it is, every quarter. You get inspected. You can get fines and violations. So there's a lot of issues why you would or wouldn't want to do it, but it's your choice. Federal government is trying to force the county to sign a law that would require private property owners to do business with the federal government and accept Section 8 under every circumstance. Now, I vetoed that legislation, and it was one of the only vetoes that the Democrats didn't have enough votes to override me on.
Oh, okay, good, great.
When I did that, the federal government and the federal monitor who was overseeing this case said that I was in breach of contract, and they were threatening me with going to court and all these other things, and contempt of court and all this stuff. And I said, no, I'm not giving up my rights as county executive, and I'm not giving up the rights of this county and the people of this county. And so we're in Second Circuit Court of Appeals on this issue. The other one is, in this administration's view, I'm talking about the Obama administration's view, they have sent a letter to us and has said, and by the way, we are the test case. We are, quote, the grand experiment by the federal government, Westchester, because what they do in Westchester is what they plan on doing to communities around the country, and they've said that. The issue on zoning is one that's very important to any county in New York and every community.
Yeah, because they have the right.
That's right. Under state law and the Constitution, every community is given the authority to plan and zone for itself. Under the Obama administration, they want me specifically as county executive, to write a letter to each mayor supervisor demanding and giving them 90 days to do it, otherwise we will begin lawsuits against them, demanding that their zoning codes are basically obliterated. In the federal government's view, there should be no restrictions in zoning codes in communities on height, on density, on acreage, on water or sewer availability, on number of bedrooms, which would obviously affect school districts.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Because in their view, anything like that in a zoning code is a way to keep people out or to control and not allow government subsidized housing in various neighborhoods. Well, my answer to that is, duh. You know, you do set up communities
Right.
as they were planned.
Right, exactly.
But every community has within its zoning codes areas set aside for multiple family, for higher density, for apartments, for affordable housing. And every community over the last decades has on its own been building and proudly building affordable housing.
Right.
And Westchester, by the way, is the 4th most diverse county in New York State. We're tied with Manhattan, Ed. So our diversity is a plus.
Yeah.
I love the fact that we've got people from all nations represented in this county, that we've got a growing population who are hardworking, who are here because they want to live here, because they want to do businesses here. That's a good thing. But to have the federal government put a gun to my head or the county's head and say, we're going to decide where people live, and we're going to decide in Washington how communities are built.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so that's what we're fighting.
Yeah,
Building the affordable housing, we're doing that because we've been doing it for this county for many decades and because it's part of the agreement. But the other stuff we will not stand for.
I'm seeing low-income housing changing to affordable housing. To me, I'm a tax activist. You know?
Right.
Something's wrong there. And the same thing with like I asked you in the beginning, the developer.
Right. Well, as part of this, here's what happens. So,
okay, so just tell me what...
There might be vacant land, there might be property that's owned by a developer or an individual, and the county does not build the affordable housing. The county will work with the state and the private enterprises to assist and bring down some of the costs. So yes, we are subsidizing. It might be the county buys the land and sells it back to the developer for $1. It may be the county takes part and does some of the infrastructure improvements, but ultimately the county does not own the property generally, and the private owner will own it with tax credits and assistance from the state or the federal government even.
So they don't have to pay taxes either, maybe?
Well, generally they are taxed.
Oh, okay.
And the units have to remain affordable for 50 years. So if somebody comes in, they can't flip the property.
Oh, can't flip it. Okay.
But there are big restrictions in the deed and covenants on all of these to maintain them. But it really comes down to, you know, should New Yorkers and people in Westchester in each community continue to build our communities, or should bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. tell us who lives where?
But it's still one pocket, the other pocket, you might want to look at it, okay?
Yeah.
So that's what I say. Now, in Yorktown, according to the census 2000, you know, they had one in 2010.
Right.
We haven't seen that. You can't even find it online, okay? But we didn't fall into like that category. But they're doing it anyway.
So Yorktown is a community based upon the 2000 census that does have to be part of the settlement.
You check it out. We have over 9% of minorities, just what you had said. And Mr. Kapowitz, county legislator, says, even though you don't fit the requirements, you should do it anyway.
Well,
so you should look into
that's
that.
A philosophical decision that local communities need to make. If if they're going to do it, and most have done it on their own.
Right.
But for the purposes of the settlement, Yorktown is considered to be an eligible community and has and is building, just like Cortland has done it. There are communities down south, Rye,
According to
Larchmont,
the census, you're saying that the county knows that Yorktown fits that criteria.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's part of the settlement. They have different categories.
I do the budgets every year. Okay. So this is all I'm seeing, though, that in one section of town, they had low-income housing. They threw all those people out. They fixed their buildings up, their apartments. I can't believe that this happened. I know they went to the county to the state, saying they couldn't do this. Then they paid people money to get out. So now they changed it to affordable housing. So now they have Section 8 coming in, and then this other stuff. All I know is that if you're going to do this stuff, you should have somebody of law enforcement make sure that all these things are done right.
Well, they're
don't go
supposed
into
to be.
somebody's pocket.
Obviously, they're supposed to be done right,
okay,
and we do have to check, and they do have to meet eligibility requirements.
Okay.
There's no question that affordable housing is needed for all income brackets. We have a responsibility as communities to do that, to provide and help people who need help. But we also have laws to protect against the fraud and the abuse and some of the other things that happen, too. I think that's got to be a balance.
All right, we got about 4 minutes to go. So
okay.
We got to get this other thing out really quick. The Tappan Zee Bridge.
Yes.
You for it now?
The new Tappan Zee Bridge,
Tappan Zee Bridge.
Yeah.
they're going to put it up alongside as they're building it, and then they take down the other one, right?
Correct.
And you talk to the engineers that the
Well, they
when it
have
was
not.
built-
The state, as of this moment, has not determined or released the winning bid. There are 3
it's
finalists. They have not yet, at this moment, released the company that's going to be the design build company. We do know, though, and my planning commissioner sits on the sort of the selection committee. We do know that it's going to cost, $4.5 billion or in that range. The state has applied for a loan to the federal government of up to $3 billion, so it's a very expensive proposition. One of the biggest public works projects in the country. There's no question that the old or the current Tappan Zee Bridge is deteriorating. It's still safe, but it's deteriorating. It's past its useful lifespan, which is unfortunate because it should have been built for more than 50 years.
Right, everything else.
But they're putting over $100 million a year just to maintain it, just to keep it up.
Okay.
And the plans would be to take down that bridge when the new ones are built. They'd be built just about 100 feet north of where the bridge is. 2 separate spans, so it would be one going eastbound, one going westbound.
Oh, 2 separate spans.
It would be built to include bus rapid transit, which I think is very important.
they
You
put
need
that
to have
in?
mass transit on that bridge from day one. And it would come in at the same spot as the old bridge in Tarrytown and
which is good.
on Rockland's side.
that's
But
good.
there's still questions to be answered, which we don't know yet. When the governor releases that soon, we'll have those answers.
Okay, that's great. So, it's, you have so many issues on your plate.
Juggling every day.
So
And a family.
and a family, that's what I'm saying. So it's really good. As president of the United Taxpayers at Yorktown, as a tax activist for all these years, it's good to see that because when you got in, I think it was like 67% over those years before, where taxes were going crazy and crazy. And I think when Spanier got in, it was like $900,000,
Million.
900 million. And it went to 1.8, so that's incredible. So listen, as a county executive, I've asked this with John Tester, and I even went down before the county legislator. I know sales tax is important revenue, okay? But I'm going to do this on TV, and I've done it many, many times. Just the sales tax of home heating oil during a home heating season would be a wonderful thing for people who are freezing, like myself, who keeps putting that thermostat further and further down. Now it's at the bottom. Your house is like in the 50s when you wake up. It may be 3%, but this is the only county that has it. Okay, I know that's a big revenue source.
Yeah, they instituted that, I don't know how many years ago.
Right, but nobody else has it.
Yeah, they instituted that probably 10 years ago. I don't remember what it was. But, at this point, with revenue so stretched, it's very difficult to drop it, especially since I'm not willing to raise property taxes right now at all. We're not at that point where we need to, and we're not doing it. Again, 3rd year in a row with no tax increase. Okay. So sales tax is a way where everyone sort of pays, even if you don't own property, you pay for sales tax. We have looked at it, but at this point it's very difficult to drop that.
Okay.
Well, and I'm a big tax guy like you,
yeah,
and that's still very hard to do.
You heat your home,
Yeah, I know, and we do too. We
and
keep our heat lower.
You get all those little taxes.
Yes.
All right,
thank
so listen, thanks for being here.
Have a wonderful holiday. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you. Now look at Rob, see? Now for the people
Santa
out
Ed.
there, this is it, I'm hoping that everybody has a great Christmas. I grew this during that hurricane.
That's it.
7 days without my electric shaver.
Wow.
So I left it on, and it's really getting there. So listen, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, because I don't know when the show is going to be on. We have to wait a week. So listen, please watch our show. We're back every week with a new guest, and Rob Astorino is fighting out there for you. And Rob, your election is next year, though, right?
Next year, 13.
Thank goodness it's next year. It's not during the present. So thanks again for
being
on.
thank you.
All right.